So my name is Sian, and thank you for the introduction. I've worked in the industries of public relations and marketing and branding for many years, and then latterly I'm now teaching and researching in those areas. And you'd think that somebody like me, with all of that experience and knowledge of how persuasive communications works, would be really careful about what I buy. But the fact is that just like many of us, I'm really encouraged to buy branded products, and I'm not always sure that I am totally in control of what I buy. So what I'm going to get us to have a think about today is to think about how this process works. Are we really in control of that process of deciding the products that we want to buy? What is it that attracts us to certain brands and makes us really loyal to them? Why is it that many of us are willing to be walking adverts for those brands? We're so connected to them, we're so loyal to them that we'll wear them, we'll carry them, we'll celebrate our use of these products on our social media. And I'm going to get us to think about this through the lens of branding. So the first thing that I want us to think about, the first question that I'm going to pose for us, is I'd like all of you to think around the brands that you love, or a brand that you love, one that you're loyal to, that you return to, that you buy. Why is it that you're loyal to that brand? What is it that's drawing you in? Is it something about nostalgia that's perhaps reminding you of something from your childhood and therefore making an emotional connection? Maybe it's something about performance, that there's a certain type of quality or of service or of product that you want, and you go back to a familiar brand because it reassures you. You can trust it. You know that you're going to get that kind of service. Or maybe it's about the company you keep. It may be that you're choosing a certain kind of brand because you share in an activity with other people, and these kind of brands are important to that activity. Maybe it's because people that you love and aspire to are using that brand. For me, I'd always class myself as sporty, and I just can't stop myself buying Nike running shoes and Nike running gear to go out in, and I should know better. I know that I don't need to spend that much money on my running shoes, but I do so anyway. So I'm going to get us to think about why this might be. We may imagine that this is a current day phenomenon, but it isn't. Going back over maybe 1,000 years, there are merchant guilds here in the UK using a form of branding, liveries and badges and logos, to put across a certain kind of message about their service. And nowadays, a big brand like Coca-Cola that we would recognize using these kind of techniques actually has been going since maybe something like the late 1880s, using purposeful persuasive communications to draw in its users. And of course, that came off the back of the rise in mass production, the ability to transport goods using the railways and other forms of transport, and then latterly, obviously, supported by mass communications. And the reason that brands like Coca-Cola had to develop this idea of branding that pulls us in and connects us to that product is because we've got a distance between the person who produces the product and actually the person that then buys it. So what the branding work is doing is it's reassuring us about the people that have made these products, connecting us to them. And of course, none of this is a conscious process. All of this is happening in the background. And branding literally is about identifying that maker, so literally maybe searing a brand, onto livestock to say where that's come from. But what do we mean then? Apart from that idea of that logo, what is this nature of branding? And I deliberately put up a brand here that I think can help us explore this nature of branding. An academic called Beverlyn talked about this nature being much more than just a logo. It's about being a member of a club. So you can picture a Harley-Davidson, this huge, great big motorbike. I've not been on one myself. But you can also picture the people, can't you, who are buying a Harley-Davidson and who are using it. They may be in a group. They're possibly wearing the same type of clothing. They may even have branded themselves with Harley-Davidson. So excited are they about being part of this club. And it is that membership part that's really drawing people in. When we decide to use certain brands and to make them part of our lives, they become part of our own self-identification. And we get connected to those brands. So when we're making that purchasing decision, we may not be making that decision in an independent way as we think. We're actually making it as a member of a community, and that's what the brand is doing to us. Now, Palmer identified that actually the other thing that brands do for us is they take away risk. Now, you and I may not feel that we're taking a risk when we buy consumer products, but all of us are taking that risk every time we buy a product because we may be disappointed with it, mightn't we? It might not turn out to be what we want it to be. So the kind of risks that branding takes away might be financial. So say, for example, I'm struggling with the cost of living. Maybe I'll choose to go into a store like Lidl, for example, where I know that the cost is low. And so I'm taking away that financial risk for myself. Maybe in a COVID world, suddenly I've become much more interested in cleaning than I ever used to be. And I'm interested in finding products that I know are going to kill germs so that I can take away physical risk. You know, I can be assured that when I go through my cleaning process, I'm going to kill germs and I'm not going to be at risk of catching a potentially fatal infectious disease. And I won't be making that choice consciously. This is happening subconsciously in my mind as I do it. Or maybe it's about risk-taking in terms of performance. So maybe I'm buying a technology product, perhaps a car, and I might then be tempted to go for certain kind of brands that I feel are reliable. And I feel they're reliable because their marketing communications work over a whole period of time. It's telling me they're reliable. And other people that have got those products and services are also telling me they're reliable. So in that moment, when I'm making my consumer purchasing decision, I'm not actually independent at all. You know, I'm relying and drawing on all of this information that has come to me over time and also being pushed at me by these manufacturers. And that becomes part of my process. The other risk that brands can take away for us is a psychological risk. And again, you may not feel that you're under psychological risk when you're buying consumer products, but there are ways that you are. And we all know this. You want to picture yourself in a restaurant and you're struggling, you're looking at the menu, it's all looking really great. You're not quite sure which, you know, what dish you're going to get. Choosing between two, you go for one of them, and whilst all of that's happening, over at the other table, somebody served the other dish that you chose. This is hugely disappointing, isn't it? You look at it and you think, I've made the wrong choice. I should have had this one. We're disappointed. It's not the end of the world. You know, it's not going to ruin the evening, or it might do, but it is going to affect how we feel about our own meal when it arrives. So actually, you know, it is important that the purchasing decisions we make do reassure us. I always like to talk about chocolate at this point because you may have your own favourite brand of chocolate. You know, many brands are available, but you certainly know the taste of that chocolate. You know, you enjoy it. You know that you like it. So if you're going to buy chocolate as a treat, we should probably be buying it as a treat, shouldn't we? You know that actually you're going to enjoy it. If you take a massive risk and think, oh, I'm going to try that new bar of chocolate, and then you don't like it, you are disappointed. It seems trivial, but these things matter to us. They're about our well-being and our enjoyment of life. And every time we make one of these purchasing decisions, we are evaluating that decision afterwards. And again, we're not doing that consciously. There's this subconscious process that's going on. I'm never buying that brand of chocolate again. That was horrible. That really disappointed me. I'm going to go back to the one that I know. So what these brands are doing are drawing us into a habitual repurchase every time, and they are playing to our quite natural sense of risk aversity. We will tend to go for the things that are reliable and that we know and trust. And if we think then about how this works, so how are these organisations building this connection to their brands over time? Well, of course, there's a logo. We always think when we think branding, we think logo. And what these logos are doing are passing on a message to us instantaneously, literally within a nanosecond. A whole range of very specific values and meanings are coming across to us. And again, we're not necessarily aware of that happening. You can see the Disney logo. You're maybe thinking magic and happiness and families. Perhaps with Nike, you know, I mentioned that might be one of the brands that I like. You know, I'm thinking, just do it when I see that logo. Just go out there, Sian. You know, get your trainers on and get going. And that's because that logo has been associated with that slogan. And it's been repeated so many times that this is now ingrained in my subconscious, and that's what I think. If we see the Apple logo, you're probably thinking expensive, but you might also be thinking, well, that's quite sleek and it's technologically advanced, and I'm guessing it's quite easy to use. And actually, I can't decouple myself from that brand because that brand has worked so cleverly to lock me in and connect all of my products together that it's actually really difficult for me to take that jump and that leap and move away from that brand. And all of that is connected into that logo. The minute we see the Apple logo, then we're off and we're looking for the next upgrade and the next product. But the logo doesn't work by itself. The logo is an amalgamation of these persuasive, powerful messages that marketing organizations are sending out to us, but it's also about experiences. So it isn't just about the logo, it's also about the experiences we get when we're looking at these brands and products. So if we imagine a brand, let's go back to the Disney brand that is up here. Think around the Disney brand, and you might then be able to think about the different ways that we can engage with the Disney brand. It isn't just about watching a film. There's actually a whole channel for Disney now, isn't there? But there are a whole different range of ways that you can engage with this brand. And you can do that engagement through products and services. You maybe have young children, maybe you've got nieces and nephews, and you're going to buy a duvet set and a pair of pajamas, and in the morning they're going to go to school with their Disney-themed rucksack and their Disney-themed lunchbox. And in addition to these products and services, we can take them to Disneyland, can't we, if we can afford it? We can actually maybe stay in a Disney hotel. We could even take them on a Disney cruise. And each of these touch points are drawing us into the brand, and they're teaching us something about the values of that brand, reinforcing what we feel about it, so that the next time we go and we're making a decision about holidays, we might be tempted to do it. Another aspect of this branding is behavior. So, for example, if we're thinking around Disney, and maybe some of you have had the opportunity to go to a Disney park, then you are going to see happy, smiley Disney people, aren't you? They are going to welcome you with those big smiles. They're going to say, have a great day. And if you need their help, they're going to be so helpful. They're going to go out of their way. They're trained to do it. They've been recruited to do it. It's part of the brand messaging. And every time we interact with one of these people or we interact with one of these areas of product, that reinforces that strong messaging about the brand. Now, other organizations do this through what we call associations. So again, here we are imagining that we're free to make these purchasing decisions and that we're just looking at brands and we're making these decisions free and easily on our own. But brands are very cleverly connecting themselves to other things as well, which are subconsciously driving these decisions. So maybe we're buying a bit of technology, and we might be reassured to know that there's a certain type of microchip inside it. I really don't care about microchips. I don't know about microprocessing. But I am reassured when I see this logo and I hear the little jingle in my head, which is telling me that actually this is a solid microprocessor and it's going to do the job that I need it to do. Likewise, if we think about the cooperative, this is a retail organisation here in the UK. When we go round a cooperative store, we might be tempted to choose that organisation's own brand products, and what we mean by that are the ones that they're producing, because they've got a fair trade logo on them, and that fair trade logo tells us that the cooperative is looking after the people it's sourcing these products from, it's paying them fairly, and it's looking after them, and it's recognising the work that's gone into that product. That may not matter to us, but it may matter to us. It may be that this is a really important part of our values, and therefore what the brand is doing is connecting us in to those values. And again, that's part of our self-identification process. I can feel good about myself if I buy fair trade bananas, because I know that, somebody's being paid well who's actually produced these bananas for me. And then coming back to my own, secret love of a brand that I shared with you today, many brands are connecting into celebrities, and that's part of their process of drawing us in, presenting us with people that we might associate ourselves with. So maybe for me, Serena Williams, she's a strong, independent, fantastically achieving woman who's broken down boundaries. She's a mother as well. There is much for me to admire in this woman. And maybe subconsciously, my love of Nike is partly about the people that Nike are associating themselves with too. I'm not thinking of Serena when I'm buying my running shoes, but actually this is going on in the background and maybe part of that persuasive and hidden messaging that's going on behind brands. And of course, what all of this is doing is giving us an emotional connection to brands. So brands are strongest when they really mean something to us personally and that we develop that emotional connection. We become incredibly loyal at that moment in time. And again, you know what this feels like because, I want you to imagine pop group bands, okay? So imagine One Direction. Imagine the fervour that people experience when they go to see that brand. Imagine sports brands and think around maybe, for example, big football brands like Manchester United, Real Madrid. The people who support those brands are fanatical but they are brands. You know, these are big commercial organizations who are using branding techniques, but what we can learn from them is the power of that emotional involvement. You know, this comes from people experiencing events, going to events, sharing their enjoyment of the live experience. It might be a live experience in a digital context, maybe through watching a mediated event together, but you're sharing in that community of that particular brand. We're at TEDxSwansea in Wales. You know, we've shared in the experience of Wales getting through to the World Cup. Wales itself is a brand, and actually we're all members of that brand, and it is that sense of membership and emotional experience that joins us in. There are commercial organizations that do this well too. So Red Bull, for example, uses experiential events to literally personify the sense of energy, which is at the core of its brand. So, you know, young people that might be engaging with the Red Bull app or on their website, getting examples of all of these adventurous activities and getting a sense that they too could get wings, you know, and actually achieve and get the energy they need to do the things that they want to do. It's not by accident that that's how Red Bull does its marketing. It's a deliberate process to engage us emotionally with that brand. And then if we move on my own work looking at authentic branding and why it works in the digital age, it will be no surprise to you that really big brands like Coca-Cola are using digital marketing really, really effectively. They're using social media marketing effectively. But what's really clever about what they're doing is that they are engaging users and consumers within that social media activity. So if we take, for example, let's say a retailer like Pretty Little Thing, what Pretty Little Thing does with its social media is it really encourages its brand users to share their own experiences of wearing their clothes. So they're encouraging people to upload photos onto the app and onto the website, showing them in their outfits, encouraging people through competitions to put an outfit together for Christmas, put one together for the summer. Not only does it connect that brand user more closely with the brand because they feel part of that brand community, we're also doing their marketing work for them, aren't we? We've become literally brand ambassadors for those brands. We're working for them, putting together free content, which they're then using. We're sharing it through all of our social media sites, and we're getting this kind of emotional connection through the digital environment. And of course, this is incredibly effective. This is a group of the world's top 10 brands, according to Interbrand, which is a global brand agency from 2022. Some of the same names have been in this top 10 for many, many years. So McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Apple, for example. And it's important that we know this because these brands are incredibly successful. They are very profitable. They are making a lot of money out of these purchasing decisions that we're making. We think we're doing it independently. I'm not against consumer products. You know, some of those purchasing decisions are really good for us, aren't they? They contribute to our lives. You know, they help us achieve the things we want to do. They support our well-being and our lifestyles. So there's a good thing about it, but we do need to be conscious that we're purposefully making those decisions and that our choices around which particular brand we use are our own choices, and actually to be conscious maybe of these processes that are happening. Apple, you know, is worth £406 billion at this moment in time, according to Interbrand. That's more money than the income of some small countries. So it's really important that we understand how this is happening. And we've been brought into that consumer culture. But it's important for another reason, not only so that you and I can be a bit more conscious of how we're spending our money, but we also need to be conscious that this consumer purchasing that we're being drawn into has other impacts as well, doesn't it? So the culture of rebuying, of going back, of being loyal, of getting the next upgrade to our mobile phone, of getting another new outfit for another occasion, all of which is encouraged by very persuasive communications, which makes us feel that this is what we need to have. We've become part of a consumer culture that makes us feel that this purchasing does represent who we are. It is part of our self-identity, but it's having an impact, isn't it? So we know there's been many reports in the media and investigative media work looking at the impact that consumer product production, consumption, and packaging is having on our oceans and our sea life, on our climates, and on our environments, and we are using the the world's natural resources to create all of these products. So it matters, doesn't it? Because if we are pulled in to these consumer product purchase decisions and we're not aware of the consequences and we're not aware of that process happening, then this could be the consequence. And so we need to be more mindful of that process and how it's happening. But there's another reason why it's important for us to understand these processes, and that's because, as well as the fact that some consumer products are clearly good for us and are taking our lives forward and improving our quality of life, we could harness this power of branding, couldn't we? We could use it in a very different way. And I've put examples here of particularly a couple of celebrities, but also an organisation, or many campaigning organisations who are using this power of branding. Greta Thunberg has become a brand in her own right. She's become a campaigner for climate sustainability. She creates events that we can participate in. She creates persuasive communications. She can effect behaviour change. And likewise, David Attenborough, very well-known and loved presenter with the BBC, has repurposed himself really in his later career to be a campaigner for sustainable biodiversity. And he's done that, through the power of his brand that he has then developed separately to the BBC. So my question to us today is to think, I want all of us, including myself, as we go away from today's session, to think about how and why we're purchasing products, think about those powerful subliminal messages and processes that are happening and are helping us make those choices. But I'm also sending a challenge, again, to people like me, people working in the industries of marketing and promotional communications, people teaching in universities. We have to use that knowledge responsibly too. We've got to guide and counsel these big organisations to be behaving in responsible ways, and we've also got to be sharing these techniques with people who can encourage the use of branding to encourage us to maybe change our behaviour and our thinking. And I think that is beginning to happen. We're seeing people really using this commercial branding in a different way. And what that means is that branding can not only support economic success, but it can be successful for people and the planet as well. Thank you.